This video contains spoilers up to episode 20 of campaign 3 of Critical Role. Hello everybody, my name is Luna and welcome to Crit Role Conspiracies, the show where we talk about all the wild and wacky theories that critters have about campaign 3 of Critical Role. Today's episode is sponsored by the Gallant Goblin and their Kobold plushie Kickstarter, but a little more on that later. This episode was off and running with a bang, as we kick off the heist at the Twilight Mirror Museum. Representing Isha Sabanis, we have The Verdict, the rival party that we met on the road to the Heartmore Hamlet. Representing Gianna Hexam, we have, of course, our faves, the Bells of the Ball, Bells Hells. And making up the third party in this three-way bet, we have Evan Hytroga, the owner of the Twilight Mirror Museum. The job? Steal a lapis lazuli earring, not a jade earring, my apologies. And the first party to do so wins. If neither party recovers the earring, then Hytroga wins. Go! Things very quickly descend into chaos. Both The Verdict and Bells Hells make their way into the building, and we spend the first part of the episode in what looks to be Hytroga's house. A very eccentric house, I might add. We get to see a few of the rooms, such as a bedroom. It's not really clear if this is like the master bedroom or a guest room, but it's a themed room. I've always wanted to stay in a themed room. It's a themed room that has like lush forest sort of landscape around it and an illusory river running through it, and you know, the piece de resistance. There is a mirror above the bed that is revealed with the touch of a button. Bo? Yasha? That you? In the dining room, there are all of these paintings of beautiful landscapes with Hytroga like in the corner of them, like, hey, like a Yoldi selfie. And there are these angelic statues of Hytroga that turn out to be these lightning traps. I am freaking in love with this NPC. They are so extra. Can the Bells Hells like please adopt them and bring them everywhere they go, please? We're also treated to some, let's face it, like Home Alone style shenanigans. Oh no, not fancy arcane trappings for these party members. We get Laudna blocking doors with her removable rod. That is actually pretty smart and cool. We get Imogen scattering ball bearings everywhere. Chetney ties fishing line across the walkway to make a tripwire. We see two members of the Verdict get stuck to the ceiling in essentially like a sticky tar-like substance. Orem ties a bag of flour over a doorway and scatters lentils everywhere on the steps. Ashton and Chetney spend some time just slapping everybody. It is just so ludicrous. I loved it. The party find a hidden set of stairs behind a painting that is leading downward, and they know that they need to go down because FCG casts locate object, and because they have a clear enough description of the item and they know the name of it, Wind's Folly, they get a pretty accurate bead on where the item is. So they know they need to go down, they head on down into rooms made of stone, and this appears to be the museum proper. Each room has these plinths with relics on them and little plaques with descriptions. It's unclear how many of these relics are actually legit, because I think Hytroga is like pretty full of it. But we do know that some of them definitely were magical because FCG cast Detect Magic a couple of times, and some of these objects have a magical aura. Okay, so let's have a look at these items and see what we can glean. Because while I am absolutely sure that some of them are bogus, I am also sure that Matt Mercer will take this opportunity to drop some random lore in that probably won't come up for ages and ages. Let us not forget that this is the man who used a smutty book to drop in important campaign lore. He's a genius. So first there is a sort of a headpiece or like a mask, a headdress that is made of leather. It's kind of like this curving leather pieces. I think there's like leather hanging down from it as well. And the plaque reads, "The headdress of a lithe priest of the cult village of Hishari." Now, I combed the Crit Role wiki, all praises given to the Crit Role wiki, and I could not find any mention of lithe priests or of this cult village of Hishari. So this could be some unexplored lore of Exandria that we're going to learn a bit more about later in the campaign. Accompanying this headdress are these suits of armor that are labeled as Hishari armor. So again, we don't have any further information about this, except that Matt did pointedly note that this armor is familiar to Ashton. Excuse me, do you want to like give a few more details, please? I'm drawing up blanks for this one. I don't have any insights to add. If you've got any theories about what this armor is or what it could mean to Ashton, let me know in the comments. In the next room, there is a carpet. The cast gets a little bit fixated on this carpet, which I guess is not a surprise given their past relationship to carpets. But no, it is not a magical relic, just a plain rug. But there is some magical armor in this room. This armor is insectoid in its shape. And we know that this is armor from the Kryn dynasty, which is in Xhorhas, which is where the Mighty Nine spent a lot of time in Campaign 2. And significantly, there is a geometric shape of some kind, but like seemingly bent or broken. The plaque reads, "Destroyed relic of the Xhorhasian dynasty. Supposedly from before the calamity, now a shell of its previous power." The cast immediately ping it for what it could be, which is the fragment of, or the vessel containing a Luxon beacon. Luxon beacons were a huge plot point in Campaign 2, and many conspiracists out there, including myself, are clinging onto the theory that Ashton may have a Luxon beacon fragment in their head. After what sounds like a truly horrible trip on some psychic trap, the party enter the next room. This room has several members of the Verdict lying down unconscious. Clearly they've been knocked out by some trap. At least we assume they're unconscious. We actually don't know because the party don't check. FCG does kind of press to check, but the rest of the party kind of dissuades him, and Lautner even casts darkness over them so that if they wake up, they will wake up in total darkness. That is messed up. Can you imagine being knocked out by something and then waking up in this impenetrable black darkness? That would be truly horrifying. Yeah, I guess that makes sense for Lautner. After some mayhem with the other two remaining members of the Verdict, they come across another relic. This is another mask. It's a carved wooden one, and the plaque reads, "Haunted Mask of the Mountain, a cursed relic that was once a sign of station with the dwarven noble house," I gotta check my notes on this, "of Overrag in Othanzia. This mask was found near the body of every mysterious death for 5 generations." Once again, I trolled the Crit Role wiki. All praise given to the Crit Role wiki. And while I couldn't find any mention of this particular dwarven house, we know that Othanzia is a country on the continent of Isura. Now, very little of that continent has been explored apart from the city of Vasselheim, which is a city that Vox Machina did spend a fair amount of time in during Campaign 1. And Vasselheim is said to be the first city that was built, which brought forth the Age of Arcanum. Next, in another room, we come to what I think is probably the most interesting relic of this museum, if it is indeed authentic. It is a book. It is said to be a journal of Vespen Clorus. Vespen is a character that we learnt about in the History of Exandria video that Critical Role put out last year, and he was basically a really, really bad guy. He was inspired by the Raven Queen's ascension to godhood, and he wanted to do the same, so he released the betrayer gods from the prison that the prime deities had put them in, basically bringing about the calamity. That's pretty bad. The party were, well, I don't know if even the party, like I feel like the cast were so eager to get their hands on this book, and I totally understand why. I am really hoping that they do manage to at least get a better look at it. They sort of had to rush past it because they had all these like time constraints, but they mentioned that they might try and get it on the way out. So fingers crossed. In one of the last rooms, there are a couple of other relics. There is the masthead of a ship. This ship was called the Hungry Fathom and was captained by Elder Tronak. And there is also the Spear of Judgement, said to belong to Joanna Bretai, who was a high cleric of the Lawbearer, aka Arathis, the goddess of civilization and laws. After Chetney is almost eaten by what I assume is a gelatinous cube, and then goes into a bit of a frenzy on Orym, the party finally make it to the last room. This is the room that has the earring that they're searching for. The description reads that this earring was worn by the mythical Jinn Harodan, and that Harodan commanded a modest kingdom, but was tricked into dissolving that kingdom. This kingdom was supposedly around during the Age of Arcanum, so before the calamity. The earring is in a glass case, which seems to be absolutely impossible to break, and while they're busy trying to like smash it open and casting spells on it, there are these 2 alcoves that are kind of slowly filling up with clay to form clay constructs. And of course, just as the clay constructs step out of the alcove, Matt Mercer says, "And that's where we'll leave it for tonight. ... That was a really fun episode. I feel like the addition of the rival party really kept things feeling dynamic and fun because they kind of had to rush all the way through rather than having a more cautious, slow pace, which sometimes, in my opinion, can drag a little. So I really enjoyed this like quick-paced, just bash down doors and see what happens. Excuse me for a moment while I channel my inner Hytroga.
Legends tell of a plushie so soft, so adorable, that mere mortals squeed themselves into oblivion when they laid their eyes upon it. And you too can experience the ultimate cuteness by backing the Kobold Plushies Kickstarter by the Gallant Goblin. Clever, loyal, and incredibly soft, a Kobold plushie is the perfect companion for any tabletop adventure. At 10 inches tall, your plushie buddy fits in your arms and on your shelves. Each new funding goal in the Kobold Plushies Kickstarter unlocks new colors and classes, and you can even swap some of their clothing and gear. You can also get pins, inspiration coins, and digital goodies. Which colorful kobold will you take home? Check out all your options and back today at koboldplush.com.
I'm just gonna pop him right there. He can just sit. Can I get him right there? Hold on. No. Alright, so let's take a look at some of your theories from the comments of my last video. I actually did do a special bonus episode this week examining all of your theories about the moon Ruidus. So I'm not going to touch on any of those tonight, but go and check out that video if you're interested in learning more. Calamas, this is for you. Kitty! So unimpressed. Last week, I completely missed that Travis had a really strong reaction to the name Altgar. So sometimes when I'm watching the show and taking notes, I'm just like listening to the audio and typing away. So I sometimes miss these little moments when there isn't any obvious audio pointing to it. So yeah, Travis had this really or Chetney I should say, had this really strange reaction to the name Altgar. So Altgar was the name of the person who made all of the weird, creepy marionettes in the antique store that Imogen and Ashton visited last week. And some very clever critters out there remembered that Chetney actually mentioned the name Altgar way back in episode 8 when he was describing why he was in Marquette. So Chetney left his prior job because he had a problem with his previous employer. His previous employer being Altgar. Altgar fired Chetney. There seemed to be some bad blood. We don't have much more information about that. We can make inferences based on the Christmas one-shot, but yeah, as far as we know, canon for campaign 3, we don't have any more info. The woman running that antique store said that Altgar was like a really nasty piece of work, so doesn't seem like a great guy, and I wonder if, some point down the track we're going to get a trip to Uthadern to maybe confront this prior employer. We speculated last week about why the assassins are targeting certain people, such as the Loomis twins and such as Keyleth, and I think a lot of the narrative around that attack on the Arashari, at least the way I have interpreted it, is that Keyleth was the target of that attack. But some of you have pointed out that if Keyleth was the target of that attack, why haven't they attacked again? It's been 6 years. You think that they would have tried again if Keyleth was the main target. Instead, perhaps Orum's husband Will, who we know died in that attack, was actually the true target. Maybe Will was Ruidus born, or maybe he knew something about Ruidus. That's unclear. But what I really like about this theory is that it centers Orum and his family as the main people involved in this storyline. Because, so Matt on Four-Sided Dive recently talked about how even though there are connections to prior campaigns, he wanted to make sure that all of the characters in campaign 3 were the center of the story and that they weren't just footnotes to stories that have already happened or stories for other, larger characters like Keyleth. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense that Will could be the target and that is how Orum is going to be kind of the major player in that storyline. We also had a couple of theories about who the figures were in Imogen's dream. I really like this theory from Basic M's just because I think it sounds really cool. They posit that maybe there was some sort of mage breeding program that Imogen's mother was a part of, and that they were trying to concentrate down this energy of Ruidus born people. I feel like this is a fun theory and could explain why Imogen's mother left. Maybe she got Imogen out of that program and kind of hid her away on that farm so that they wouldn't find her. So the figures in the dream could be those generations of Ruidus born people in this program. I don't really have any evidence to back this up, I just think it's a cool theory. Rainier wonders if the figures in the dream were actually connected to the stone. So Imogen fell asleep holding that Gnarl rock, that purplish stone that they found. So maybe the figures were actually related to the stone, not necessarily related to the storm. An SMS points out that Imogen was clutching that stone pretty tightly, and there is a little bit of concern there that maybe it is a cursed item. In Campaign 2, Sam had a cursed item that he didn't tell anybody about, and it was doing really, really nasty damage. And he was kind of dropping these little clues here and there that he was like, you know, very attached to this item because he couldn't give it up. That was part of the curse. So yeah, there's a little bit of concern that maybe something similar is happening with Imogen. I guess we'll just have to keep a pretty close eye on that. As always, I love to hear your theories, so please put them in the comments below and we can get some great discussion going. You're also very welcome to join my Discord because we do have a lot of Critical Role channels there that we talk about all of our different theories. I'll put a link in the description below. Thank you once again to the Gallant Goblin for sponsoring this video. Head to koboldplush.com or visit the link in the description to back the Kickstarter today. A very special thank you to my patrons who helped me make this video. If you would like to support the channel and get access to my exclusive podcast, Flump Friends, where I talk about all things D&D and tabletop RPGs, then you can click the join button underneath this video, or you can sign up on Patreon. All of the details are in the description. The wonderful art for this video is by Jake Tooth and Nail. You can check them out on Instagram. And remember, until next time, ...